Good evening and salutations, my Days of Our Lives fans. This is going to be a bit of a different one because this is pretty much off the cuff. I did not take any notes, but I do remember a lot that wound up happening. I watched this morning, around 7 o'clock. Okay, so this whole thing with Johnny and Chanel, right? Huh. I can see where both of them are coming from. They both kind of irk me a little bit. I get where Chanel was coming from. Johnny pretty much blindsided her. He felt like that for at least a couple of weeks or whatever, and didn't bother to sit there and talk to her. And now he's having misgivings about this whole adoption thing, and now she has to sit there and play catch up, right? So I get where she's coming from. I get her anger. Johnny didn't get angry, but I got kind of annoyed, if we're going to be honest. Okay? I didn't like the fact that she was sitting there trying to think for him. I didn't like the fact that she was like, well, eventually when you see the baby, you're going to be fine. I didn't like the fact when she was like, well, what about what I want? Okay, if you want a goddamn baby so bad, go out there and adopt the baby. What is the problem? How are you going to sit there and try to force a baby on him just because you want one? I didn't like that. I didn't like her sitting there trying to manipulate him into being like, well, just give it a chance. Just no. If he says he doesn't want to do it, he doesn't want to do it. Hell, let's be honest. If the roles were reversed, you know how many people would be upset of Johnny sitting there pressuring her into doing something? But now she's doing that exact same shit, and I didn't like it. I didn't like the fact when Tate and Sophia came to the door, and he was sitting there trying to talk, and she kept trying to shush him. Let me tell you something, ladies. Okay, I'm gonna be real. Okay, just coming from a man's point of view, there are certain things that we would just find to be intolerable. Shushing us like we're goddamn kids is definitely non grata. Okay? That was something she was sitting there doing because she was trying to be like, well, don't tell him, don't. Yo, listen. He's telling them because it's not fair to sit there and keep them waiting, keep them hanging when they can go out and find two parents that actually want to sit there and adopt. And once again, she keeps trying to make it seem like, well, I want to and we want. No, 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 no. You want to. You want to. Do not sit there and speak for him. That's not what we're going to be doing. But then, Sophia's upset. Tate's upset. Oh my God, you're going to actually have to sit there and be responsible adults or responsible people and raise your own goddamn baby. Y'all two sitting there acting like y'all don't have to find out your means or anything like that to provide. So, cry me a goddamn river. I mean, listen, as much as Amy annoys me, you know what? You sat there and you did this. Now you're going to have to deal with this. You want to sit there and say you weren't ready for a baby? Well, you should have thought about that. You shouldn't, exactly. If that was the case, you shouldn't have had sex then. So I do not feel bad for either one of them. I don't. You're ready to sit there and have sex, so yeah, we're not going to do that. That's why when I saw Tate sit there and hit Johnny, like the little asshole that he is, I'm like, I'll be honest, I didn't like Tate since day one. I did not like his character since day effing one. I didn't. So, there's that. But then Johnny thinks that, Johnny is so delusional. He's like, well, when she tells him to leave, and he's like, come on, we can work this out. We can get past this. What do you mean we can get... You just blindsided her less than 10 minutes ago, and now you talking about we could just get past this? Bro, this is not a get passable kind of moment. You can't, like, Johnny, you can't be this stupid. You cannot be this dumb. You sat there and watched her be all happy and joyous and smiling and laughing and giggling and all that just to sit there and tell her, oh yeah, we're not gonna adopt a baby. And you think that you're just gonna just what? Go to bed and that's it? wake up to no job like you've been doing for the past God knows how many months, how many weeks now? Nah, broski. So you the Lulu. Now you got that going on. You got um, Maggie sitting there being upset with Philip for the whole lying thing and causing turmoil amongst the family. But I'm like, Maggie, your own daughter sitting there lying to her so-called husband. So, you're encouraging your daughter to sit there and continue to lie to your husband, and yet you got all this animosity talking about, oh well, you need to leave and you need to leave by the time Xander gets back. You realize that that's also Victor's son, and you want him to leave? F up out of here. Honestly, to tell you the truth, I'm glad that he decided to sit there and be more mature about it and leave. But his ass could have stayed. His ass could have stayed. He has just as much right sitting there being there. Just like when he went to Titan, he had just as much right sitting there having that country because he knew that's what his dad would have wanted. The company. But of course, Xander's like, I'm gonna find a way to sit there and get you out, right? And after Sarah was sitting there talking to Xander, she pretty much towards the end tells Maggie, you know what? It's better just to sit there and lie and just move forward. You hypocritical ass. Okay, all right, sure. I guess we'll do that. Like, fine. I guess we'll do that. 1 second. Now, while this is going on between Philip and Maggie, you have Doug, who is practically trapped there. So Holly went to go get some food, and he gets a call, and they're offering him a job as far as being the cashier. Now, Holly wants to sit there and tell Maggie, listen, let's not sneak around. Let's just tell Maggie. I think she'll be fine with it. Doug is like, oh, I'll sit there and find a job, and I'll be able to pay my own rent or whatever. So, we may not even have to go through that. He gets a call. It's a job. It's a cashiering job. And the person apparently was like, have you ever worked, cashiering before? He's like, yeah, totally have. And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it's just kind of basic, but I feel like most people at some point in time have worked a cashier job on some level. So I was a little kind of shocked. I don't think that's going to be enough for him to sit there and get an apartment. Maybe a room at best, but a whole apartment? I don't know about that. But anyway, now he's sitting there waiting because they're outside and they're talking and stuff like that. He does wind up towards the end. He does wind up getting caught by Philip. Now, there's a point where he is on the phone with the guys who, beat him up because he didn't, he didn't pay his, whatever money he owed. But he did pay it, right? And I don't even remember how he actually explained his way out of the Philip situation, but these guys apparently want interest now. Bro, it's been like a couple of weeks at this point. Now we're just throwing in some bullshit talking about, oh, well, you got to pay up the interest, and we know where you live. We know that we know you have money. You live at Julie's place. And then he was like, no, you live at Maggie's place. So they know that he's staying with Maggie and Holly and stuff like that. So he decides to sit there and leave a message saying that, he's just going to leave and not be a burden. So you got that going on. Why do I feel like there's... See, this is why I generally do take notes. Because I don't like, I don't like not like knowing my shit, but I did want to sit there and talk about it. There's also a point where Holly runs into there's also a point where Holly runs into Tate and Sophia. See, Tate wanted to take Sophia out to the prom, and she bought a whole bunch of dresses and stuff like that. They're just really happy and everything, and Holly comes across those two, and of course Sophia's like, yeah, he's taking me to prom. You want to throw it in her face or something? Like, okay. she almost seemed like she's either annoyed or something like that. I was like, boo, you did dump him. You don't, you dumped him twice. You don't get to sit there and have any sort of reaction, any sort of you being mad reaction whatsoever. That's what we're not going to be doing. Um, anyway, she does what she does, and then she wound up leaving. Um, yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I am kind of like cheating at this point. Also, because I refuse to sit there and do this all over again. So I'm kind of just like speed running through it and seeing if I missed anything. Oh, I did. So, conversation with Julie and Maggie, right? They both talk about their loss and stuff. Mostly Julie, because hers is still fresh. But there's a point where they're talking about Doug. And Julie tries to make it seem like she don't give a damn about. She literally said, "I don't give a damn about Doug. He lied. He betrayed me and everything like that. He stole from me." Maggie's like, "You did sit there and steal. I don't know. Maybe it was like 200 something years ago. But let's not sit there and try to act like, you weren't young and dumb and just make mistakes or whatever." Now she tries to play what she did down and try to make it seem like, oh well, he stole from a family member and this, that, and the third. I was like, okay, bro, listen, I get it. I get being angry. I get being upset. But at the end of the day, that is still family in a sense, right? That necklace could be replaced. He can't, you know. Um, but I feel like it's also kind of a cover in a sense. Like she's so angry, but she doesn't. I guess it's. Here's the thing: it's easier to be upset with somebody than it is to be hurt and wondering and worrying about where he's at. So it's almost kind of like an armor in a sense, you know. Um, yeah, after talking to Xander and everything like that, now she's even more chicken shit to sit there and tell the truth. And yeah, like I said, when they screw that, after they got back from, it's really odd though. So they knock on the door, and you can clearly see that there's an argument that's going on between those two. You can't miss those tears that is coming out of Chanel's eyes because her blowing her nose, it's like, I felt like she was crying so much that her nose got red. So, props to Raven. Hey, props to Raven. But she walks in, she's like, oh, well, here's a baby book or a journal or whatever. And I'm like, you, you really not going to sit there and ask what's going on, like, before you give this gift? Like, I just felt like the thing was just so weird. Anyway, that's actually about it. I'll talk about this stuff again tonight, but I don't know. I haven't done a review on Days in a while. So, anyway, I'll see y'all later tonight. I'm only going to be on for an hour since I got to wake up at a really awful time in the morning. So, I will be back fully, Wednesday and doing it up, but also I'm trying to run down the clock because I don't like it being on 13. I'm just going to be honest. I don't like it being on 13. I just don't. Um, Alright, I will see you on the next video.